much here. Let's give Inma a big welcome. Okay, let's welcome Professor Inma. And I think we are very excited to have her here again, and also face to face, real time, live face to face. So we would like to welcome Inma from the University of Malaga, Spain, and her expertise is in English lingua franca and also Clio, and also teacher's professional development. He is a well-known, well-established researcher in the fields and also teacher trainer in her country. So today she is going to talk about a topic that I also this morning I briefly talked about. She used a more fancy term, which is attractive term, dynamic strategy to integrate digital and disciplinary literacy in EMI. And this morning I just briefly talk about my practice of using how I use AI to enhance my discipline literacies in my ESP course for general biology. So that's a great good overlapping between the two topics and from a different perspectives and experience in different countries. So without further delay, let's welcome Inma.
Thank you so much. Let me start sharing my slide. And here, can you see the slides?
Yes.
Okay, good.
Yes.
So I'm really excited to be back here with you. Good morning and good afternoon to you. And for us, it's a slightly early morning session, but hopefully it will be dynamic as I always try to make my sessions. I will be talking, as Regine was anticipating, about how to integrate digital and disciplinary literacies in EMI. And let me start with some introduction. I will start with providing some context because I was looking at the questions on the Padlet and there were several questions. So what I did is I structured some of the information, trying to answer the questions at the same time. Let's see if I can manage to do that. I will provide some context, and eventually I will be talking about digital literacy and digital competence, particularly in my context, which is regulated by the European Union. And then I'll talk about disciplinary literacies slightly briefly, because my intention is to see how we can integrate both. Particularly discussing some strategies that we can use in our lessons, and particularly moving to examples from my context. I have a ton of examples from my former students, as Regine was anticipating. I am a teacher trainer, so my former students are now teachers in high school. And I will be providing examples from my former students and also some research collaborators, because I'm currently in a research project that collaborates with high schools as well. And then eventually we will move on to the questions and a few tips that I have for you. So when I was looking at the questions, one of them was asking if I could provide more information about the bilingual education system in Spain, and this is trying to provide some context. Look at the map of Taiwan, and I hold this map dearly because I always say that if you turn it around, my region in Spain, which is Andalusia. In Spain, educational policies are not run by the national government, they are run by the regional governments. And so this is important. This is why I'm showing my region, which is Andalusia, because it's the regional government that regulates education, not the national government. We have certain national standards, but because we have, for example, in Catalonia, we have bilingual education with Catalan and English, and we have different needs for different students in different regions. This is why regulations are local not national. And this is why I will be talking about reversed map of Taiwan, which is Andalusia, and from Malaga, it's on the coast, on the Mediterranean coast. Okay, so as I was anticipating, Spain has 17 regions. Andalusia is one of them. Andalusia has approximately 8.6 million population. And as of today, we have, well, as of today records, which means 2024, we have over 3,000 bilingual public schools, out of which around 1,000 are high schools. The pilot programs for bilingual education in Andalusia started in 1998, and the official bilingual programs started in 2005, which means that only, the brave, motivated teachers started with the pilot programs in 1998, but then it was regulated by the regional government and it became official in 2005. Right now, as I mentioned, we do have bilingual programs not only in primary and secondary education, but also in vocational education. It's very popular right now. And again, around 1,000 schools, because we have a combination. Some of our schools are high schools, and some of them are high school with vocational education. So another around 1,000, it's slightly less, we have with vocational education. One of the main problems we have is that national standardized entry exams for university are not in English, which means that the majority of these around 1,000 high schools in Andalusia do not cover senior high school education, or try not to, because if you are preparing students for university entry exams in English, but then the exam is taken in Spanish, it might affect their final grade negatively. And if they're trying to compete with other students, to entry certain programs that are very competitive, it might, damage their grades. This is important because as of today, most high schools offer bilingual programs up to what we call primero bachillerato, which is second to last year of high school, but very few often on the last year of high school. Also, another problem we have is that in the past, high schools would offer language support for students. We do offer free language support for teachers. We offer free methodological support for teachers. But in the past, we used to offer, most schools would offer language support for students. Because of budget cuts, this has been reduced in the last 5 years, and very few, particularly rural schools, get the funding for linguistic support. The answer to this would be for students who are enrolled in bilingual programs in the morning to attend language schools. We do have, Spain is the only country in the European Union with free public language schools. So you can attend a language school and learn, Chinese or Japanese or English or French. And high school students have a priority when enrolling in these public language schools. However, because of the budget reductions, there are very few of these public language schools in rural areas. And this is creating inequities and great differences between the language competence that our students in certain rural areas can have in other languages that are not Spanish. Moving on to the two main topics that I will be discussing today, let me talk to you about digital competence. Digital competence, when I talk about digital competence, I refer to the European Union concept of digital competence for educators, okay? It also affects digital competence for learners, but we look at it from the teacher's point of view. digital competence in the European Union has to be, it includes digital literacy, pedagogical integration, critical thinking, empowering learners, digital citizenship, and adaptability. You're probably thinking, so if I use digital tools in my classroom, do I need to do all of this? Well, it seems a little bit overwhelming at first, but then once you start analyzing it, it's relatively easy. And I'm sure that if you are already implementing digital activities or using digital tools for activities in your ME lessons, I don't think it should be a problem. But it's true that it can be a little bit daunting at first when you look at it. This is why I prepared this infographic. Digital literacy has to do with just being able to navigate and search for information, manage information online. So I would assume that most of you have a certain degree of digital literacy, and you are also teaching your students to have themselves certain level of digital literacy. So this one would be like the most, the easiest to attain in the 6 areas of the digital competence from the European framework. The second one is pedagogical integration. Pedagogical integration requires that you become familiar with multiple tools to be used for pedagogical use in your classrooms, and you are able to decide which tool is the best for this particular function, which tool is the best for this particular group of students, or for this particular level of difficulty with my students, and so on and so forth. Critical thinking, which is number 3 in the 6 areas of the European framework, has to do with 2 levels of critical thinking. On the one hand, obviously, critical thinking in terms of educators. So how are we using digital tools for teaching? Was my use of this app successful in my classroom today? And so self-reflection on your own teaching practice when you are integrating digital tools, but also promoting students' critical thinking by using information. So, for example, helping them become independent when doing certain, internet research, and helping them distinguish between, important and qualified sources, but also, maybe fake news or fake information, fabricated information, and so on. Number 4 of the digital competence framework is empowering learners. In this case, is creating digital content and dynamic tasks for certain lessons, understanding copyright, understanding licenses, and certain issues. Empowering learners normally is done with more dynamic kind of apps. I can suggest a number of those, but those are relatively difficult to master. So you would need some time to be able to succeed in number 4 if you're trying to do it only with digital tools. I'll show you examples in which you can do number 4 without just necessarily using only digital tools, but a combination of analogic and digital tools. And then number 5 with digital citizenship is promoting ethical use of digital tools. So helping our students to, for example, stop cyberbullying, or to help them with certain privacy and identity issues. And the last one is normally also a difficult one, because it's being able to solve technical problems and being able to adapt. So I'm trying to use this tool, and then I need to test it before I test it in class, because if there are certain technical problems, how am I going to solve them during my lesson? So number 6 would be, okay, these are the different proficiency levels that the European Union establishes for digital competence. And as you can see, we like the A1, A2 up to C1 levels, obviously mimicking the European framework for the learning of languages. We don't have C2 level yet. We do have courses for basic courses for teachers, starting from A1 to C1. But as I said, there are no courses as of today in Spain that offer C2 level. I'm not sure we will have them in the future. C2, C1 level is the leader role, so it's not someone who already uses digital competence in their lessons and also helps maybe other colleagues, but becomes some sort of leader, so someone who has some YouTube channel explaining how to use these digital apps for education and for bilingual education. This is the actual framework from the European Union. So I wanted to anticipate the information before we looked at it, because I think it might seem a bit complicated, but it's really not. And on the left-hand side, you see professional engagement, digital resources, teaching and learning, and assessment. And the line is mine. It's not part of the framework, and the arrows I included because I adapted it, the framework for bilingual education, not just for education. So if you remember from my videos, one of the videos is on multimodal pedagogy and multimodal scaffolding, so scaffolding input. And then the other video is about the pedagogy of multiliteracy and turning our students into multiliterate students, multiliterate users. So it's about their output. So basically the line would be using digital tools and becoming, digitally proficient in providing input for our students. And then on the other side, both in the empowering learners and facilitating learners' digital competence, that would be on the line of output. So helping our students create multimodal products. And this is important, multimodal products, not necessarily digital products. And in our case, because it's bilingual education, this has to be combined with disciplinary literacy, both in the input and in the output, okay? Now, disciplinary literacy, it's good that it was anticipated in one of the talks this morning, but I'll just have this very short quote: is specific literacy practices and ways of thinking that are characteristic of different academic disciplines. So the language that we use in biology is slightly different from the language that we use in math and the language that we use in physical education, but it goes beyond the language and beyond the vocabulary into how things are done, how experiments are done in biology are different to how experiments are done in physics, and to how processes are done in physical education. And it has to do with not only language and vocabulary and types of texts, but also in types of activities, types of functions, types of processes. And I would say it also affects assessment, because even if you have an exam, the exam for math in English does not look the same as the exam for biology. You have different types of questions, even you are expecting different types of answers, etc. So even if you have the same kind of assessment tool, you will have different ways of assessing your students. Okay, and I would say that the best way to combine digital competence and digital literacy and disciplinary literacies, it would be through the pedagogy of multiliteracies. I anticipate a little bit of the pedagogy of multiliteracies in my videos, but I would suggest that we take into consideration a recent development of pedagogy of multiliteracies, which is learning by design. Learning by design is basically structuring your lessons into different stages. And in those stages, you ask your students to practice certain skills, and then you assess your students on how well they have developed those skills. The learning by design framework has been adapted in Andalusia. So I will be discussing the learning by design from the theory and then the implementation in Andalusia. And then I will compare the learning by design and the learning situations with the one you have in Taiwan, if I understand it correctly. As of my previous slides, this is also inspired from some of the questions I received on the Padlet. So the learning by design tries to establish a very specific structure between different stages that you need to follow in your lessons. This is important now that we understand the difference between lesson and session. Your session is established normally by the government. It should be, I don't know, 50 minutes, 60 minutes, 45 minutes, depending on the government, but it's normally not longer than 1 hour for high school. But that is a session, but a lesson can take over to 1.5 sessions, 2 sessions, 3 sessions, etc. And this is why, originally, if you look at this structure, you might think, I will not have enough time to do all of these in just one session. It's okay, because you can do it in one lesson, but not necessarily just one session. You split it up. And it is okay to split the same session into, I don't know, clear teaching or traditional teaching, and then a little bit of learning by design in different parts of different sessions. Okay, situated practice has to do with connecting with our students and with our students' previous knowledge. So this would be part of scaffolding, but also with their experiences. The learning by design tries to establish certain critical pedagogy tenets, and that those have to do with how students feel or how students have experienced the world, and then learning from those experiences. We'll see examples of this later. In situated practice, it's important that you have, the typical brainstorming or some kind of, participatory activity in which students can express their previous knowledge and or experiences on the topic. So maybe you could talk about, I don't know, climate change, and then how they feel that climate is changing, and then you build from that. In the overt instructions section, the second stage, you have just teaching. So the teacher explains something, addresses certain issues or concepts, and in our case, in bilingual education, you can also offer more multimodal scaffolding in terms of language, so maybe using some visuals to help with the new language. In the critical framing part, students are working autonomously, so the teacher would be monitoring their work, but not necessarily participating in the whole process. And in this case, students are asked to either read a text or watch a video or have some kind of information analyzed. This information can be collected by themselves or collected by the teachers. There are multiple combinations, but they need to be analyzing the information so that they can come up with certain answers to the problem or certain solutions, or they can provide their own version of how to improve the problem that was presented to them. In transform practice, this is where students do their multi-literate production. So they create something. It has to be a multimodal product, but again, it doesn't have to be digital. It can be digital, and it can be something blended between digital and analogical. We'll see examples of this later. Now, in Andalusia, we combine the learning by design with the 5E instructional model. The 5E instructional model starts with engaging students, then exploring a topic, then explaining, elaborating, and evaluating. In Andalusia, we have gone as far as to eliminate the explain parts. We'll see that later. And then we have 4 E's: engage, explore, elaborate, and evaluate, but not explaining. Explaining would take place in a different lesson, not during the lesson that is adapted to the learning by design pedagogy. And this is the learning situation. This is how it looks in Andalusia. So we would have engaging when you present the topic to students. They can connect to certain experiences or previous knowledge. Then we have exploring. Students autonomously look for information, and then they might have some kind of presentation, or they share it with other students, maybe through a text. It really depends on the disciplinary literacy that you have. Then they have elaborate. They need to create some multimodal products. So I'm sure you can notice this relates to transformed practice. I use the same color so that you can see the parallelisms between each of these models. And then the last one is evaluating. Evaluating in Andalusia is not assessment. Evaluating is in a sense of understanding how well students did. So it's more about self-assessment and about peer assessment, but also it can be part of gamification. So understanding who did best in the class, but it's not necessarily a section for an exam or for actual, formal assessment. It's more about evaluating if students are, learning, if students are progressing over time. Now, I hope that understanding how to structure your lessons can help you with time management. I received certain questions about time management, and also how to apply multimodality and particularly multimodal, multiliterate production by students. My idea is that, and this is my understanding, please correct me later if I'm wrong, that this is the structure for your own professional development program. So in Taiwan, you have overview, delivery, interaction, and recap. And in all those phases, you introduce multimodality, translanguaging, and artificial intelligence. So how does that apply to the pedagogy of multiliteracies? You would have the overview on situated practice, delivery on the overt instruction, interaction between critical framing and transformed practice, and then recap would be outside of the learning by design. If we compare your model with our model in Andalusia, between engaging and exploring, you would have your overview, and then delivery would be done before our lessons. Normally, it's not part of a learning situation, so formal teaching is not part of a learning situation in Andalusia. And then you would have interaction between exploring and elaborating, and recap would be corresponding to evaluate. Let's move on now to my advice on how to do some dynamic strategies on combining both digital literacy and disciplinary literacy in your bilingual education courses. And this is again answering some of the questions that I received on the Padlet. So I would suggest that you start by creating certain interactive research projects. Here in Andalusia, through the learning situation structure, we ask our students to do certain interactive research projects. Very recently, some of my students were implementing something about kindness and bullying. So how kindness can counteract with bullying in the classroom. And so students need to be finding information about, autonomously online. They're finding information about bullying, about how to counteract bullying, etc. And then eventually they need to be, they were asked to create a campaign. A campaign would normally include the production of different multi-literate products. So they would have an oral presentation, but they would also have a poster. They would have infographics. They would have a number of multi-literate products. And then in the end, with the evaluate, they would have some kind of competition to see which one was the best campaign, and so on and so forth. So interactive research projects are the ones that are best adapted to our learning situation structure. You can always use collaborative learning tools in which students, like Padlets, you were already using that. Students can feel that there's this other space where it's, for some students, it's easier to communicate in English on those platforms rather than speak out loud in English in class. So giving them certain spaces where, students with lower proficiency or with, lower self-esteem, or just because they're shy, they prefer to be communicating in these collaborative learning tools rather than, out loud in the classroom. I would strongly advise you to use flipped classroom strategies, and I have some tips on how to do this later. Now, flipped classroom strategies can save a lot of time. If you're struggling with time management, flipped classroom strategies can really help. One of the things I do with my university students is we show videos. We have videos on the platform, and they need to watch those videos before they come to class. So when we start the lesson, I don't need to do any formal teaching in the sense of a lecture, but they already have certain concepts, and we start by discussing them and by building on that knowledge that they have received outside the classroom. Digital assessment tools I strongly advise you to use because they can be used for assessment, formal assessment, as if they were an exam. But students don't feel that these are exams. You can use Kahoot or Socrative, Mentimeter. There are hundreds of apps that you can use. In Andalusia, we have our own classroom management platform, which is Averroes, but you can use Class Dojo to manage all of the results that you are obtaining from different apps if you want to. And then I would strongly advise, as you know from my video, gamified learning, because it not only increases motivation and engagement, but it particularly helps students with learning difficulties and students with lower levels of language proficiency. It gets them motivated, and they can participate when they would normally not otherwise do so. So examples, I have, as you can see, many examples. The first one I have here is from a biology class in Segundo ESO. This is a very famous TV show in Spain. It's called Pasapalabra. You have the alphabet. It looks like this little circle. And normally on TV, what they do is they provide a definition, and the contestant has to provide the word. So what is the concept that they are referring to? If you adapt it, you can do it with Genially. It's not playing. Okay. Oh, sorry about it. Oh, okay. No, no, it won't stop. Okay. Sorry about this. Let me try and do it again with the examples. See, you can do it analogically, but you can also do it digitally. There are apps for you to do a pasapalabra, this game. This is something as I was saying, it's segundo de eso in biology. So students created the definitions, and they read them aloud in English, and then the teams need to guess which is the concept And so you can use this to revise before the exam in case you have definitions in your biology exam. Okay, and this is the group that won the contest. This one is from Women in Science. We have a specific day in high schools for women in science. And so this is a combination, again, of digital literacy and disciplinary literacy, and but also digital products and digital use and analogic products. So the final result created by the student is analogical, but the information was obtained digitally. These of important women in science. So students selected from a list provided by the teacher, and then they had to create these products. And these are bilingual. You see some examples here. The information, as you can see, in this case is in English, but later on, using the computers and digital tools to collect the information. And then, as you can see here, it's both in English and in Spanish. Also here on the top right, you see in English, but then bottom right, it's in Spanish. This one is one of the most popular, and in fact, I'm trying to do it with my own students. It's an escape room. I don't know if you're familiar with escape rooms, or if you have ever tried. They take a long time to prepare, but they are normally very, very fun, very dynamic, and also, very motivating for learners. This one is a science escape room. It's from physics and history of art on Cuarto ESO, so fourth year in high school. And it's inspired by Harry Potter theme. As you can see, this is the classroom. It's been arranged for different teams, and then you have different boxes with mysteries and clues, and here you have the students trying to decode the mystery. As I said, because it's history of art and physics, you have some of these pictures are history of art, but then on the other side, you have questions. Some of the instructions are in Spanish, some of the instructions are in English. And you see the students are working on their different colors, different teams. And here you have the teachers and the timer on screen. This is the one I repeat. I've been repeating this one for 3 years now, because it's quite interesting to see how the biology teacher, the geography teacher, and the English teacher for Tercero de ESO collaborate in horizontal coordination, and the students create these multimodal products. In this case, they are analogic. But I wanted you, before we start seeing different examples, this is inspired by Around the World in 80 Days, the Jules Verne book. And it covers all of the destinations in the book. This is a person traveling the world, and he stops in different parts of the world. And so students are asked to provide information, both geographical and biological information, so flora and fauna, about these different destinations from the book. And so it's the three teachers collaborating and helping each other with, disciplinary literacy, obviously for geography, etc. But for example, in terms of language, the English language teacher would be helping with definitions, with vocabulary, etc. The final product is called the tourism fair. So it's a whole school project, in the sense that the Tercero de ESO students show their products to the rest of the schools, and you see that in a minute. And there's a combination between the use of digital devices and analogical products in the end. So, as I was saying, you can see here information for the animals in one of the destinations, so biology, but then you also have geography here. And here are the different countries, more countries. And here you have the students, they have a laptop so that they can be doing part of the presentation with a digital presentation. But as you can also see, they have brochures, they have maps, they have the different characters present in the book represented on their desks. Okay. And what I find most interesting is that they engage the whole school. So students from other levels, they get here and they are told about these destinations and about the information. And eventually they see the results beyond the classroom. This is another initiative by ES Cantillana, and it's 80 books in 80 days. This is, again, this is a geography and English language teacher collaboration. And in this case, they have a map with 80 books from different countries in the world, and they have students have to summarize those books in English, not necessarily read the books, depending on how long they are. Read the books in English. And again, in this case, they collect information digitally, but they present the information analogically. In this case, also, the information from the project is brought out of the classroom and shared with other students outside the classroom, in this case, with anyone who just passes by. This is the science exchange from Torres de los Guzmanes. This is because of a telecollaboration project that the high school is participating on. And this one is surprisingly senior students enrolled in physics. And they are on this telecollaboration particle physics exchange. So you can see it here. And they have communication. This is the way they would do the telecollaboration. And this is one of the examples I wanted to bring because one of the questions was about this. We can talk about it further later. This one is the Science Pirates. This one is the first time that they organize it. And the Science Pirates is similar to the escape room by Harry Potter that I just mentioned. So same idea in the sense that you have some kind of box, you have lockers, and those locks have number combinations. To know the combination, you need to solve a number of problems. All of the instructions, again, are in English, but in this case, because they are older students, many of the activities are done on the computer. Once you get the result, that's when you try the combination on the lock. You can see them working here. And this is the Science Pirate, the teacher. These two projects are not related to disciplinary literacy per se, in the sense that these are school projects about, in this case, tidying your room or gender. I think it's, but I wanted to show them to you because you can see how different teachers are, again, collaborating and proposing school projects, not just, class projects. This one, as I said, is another escape room, so another competition. And it's for tidying the room. And this one is for Erasmus Days. So they invite the whole school to ask questions about Erasmus, and exchanges between different high schools in Europe. In this case, Francisco Ayala has an exchange with Lithuania, but because it's done in English, they don't speak Spanish, we don't speak Lithuanian, it's all done in English. You have some examples here, again, engaging the whole school, not just the class. Okay, let me give you some tips on to adapt your tools. This is, I would say adapt your tools to your context. So adapt the digital tools that you use for your students, for your context. For example, I've noticed that certain apps don't work so well with older students. So instead of Kahoot, maybe, because might seem a bit childish, you might want to start using Mentimeter or Socrative or some other quiz tool. You can join telecollaboration projects, as I was illustrating before. And I would say, as always, share with your colleagues, share on repositories, share if you are adventurous, share on YouTube, etc. Let me, before we finish, let me address a couple of questions that were quite interesting. This one has to do with how to effectively design and implement scaffolding. And I was anticipating with instructional scaffolding, so doing certain flipped classroom methods, maybe doing certain activities such as story maps or think alouds or read alouds. These activities can be done in just maybe 5-10 minutes of your lesson, and it can really help those students that are struggling either with the concepts or particularly with the language. Those that have lower level proficiency, they would really appreciate these kind of exercises. And as I said, normally they only take 5 minutes, 10 minutes tops. And then how to prevent students from becoming overly reliant on artificial intelligence in bilingual education. That is the question of the moment, but I really appreciated it. I would say this is what I do in my own classroom at the university. The first thing I do is I ask, synchronously with my students, a question on one of the artificial intelligence platforms, and show them that it makes mistakes. So this is wrong, and this is wrong, and this is wrong. And then they're like, what? Okay, I thought everything that the app would suggest was correct. And then what I do is, let me help you use the app, the artificial intelligence app, correctly and wisely. And here I have some tips on how to do this with deep research prompt, finding a role, finding a context, finding a task, and a format for the questions that you want to ask either Gemini or ChatGPT or Perplexity. And so depending on what is it that you want to do with your students, help them by providing very, very clear prompts. And therefore, the results that they obtain from the artificial intelligence apps will be more accurate. And then from there, they can be building on maybe creating graphs, and this is why in Andalusia we have a combination of both digital and analogical products by the end of the learning situations. Well, before I start, I would like to encourage you to combine these two literacies, the disciplinary literacy and digital competence. I hope that the combination of these two is slightly clearer with these dynamic strategies that I was proposing. And I'm open for questions and any comments that you may have. These are my references. And thank you.
Thank you so much, Ima. It's really interesting to see so many things going on in high school setting, which is very dynamic. And I think the teacher needs some time to warm up for the questions. So I would like to propose the first question. Would like to actually two questions. The first question is that because you can see some exciting activity or task that going on, but it seems kind of impossible in Taiwan because of the washback effect of the written exam. So how do teacher, the subject area teacher, like STEM area teacher, that to cope with the entrance exams, the demands of the entrance exam, but at the same time still developing some meaningful and situated contextual tasks like that for students to engage in. And my second question is that I think for one of the activities, whether it's that escape room that you mentioned some of the instructions are in China, in Spain, and some of the instructions are in English. What are some deciding criteria that decide for in the instruction to be given in particular language? Is there any special consideration when teacher design the test and it's a bilingual test, and what are some criteria for you to decide which one should be used in which language? And that's my two questions.
Well, thank you for the questions. One of the good things about being able to implement these dynamic activities is that in Andalusia, up to the fourth year of high school, the legislation changed in 2017, and we can assess students not only on content but also on skills. And so when you assess your students on skills, you will have a little bit more freedom in terms of what you can do in the classroom and how you can evaluate and you can assess your students. Because as long as you are tracking their progress over time, then you can, show that you have evidence of their learning, but it doesn't necessarily have to be an actual exam. This is true only for ESO, so the first 4 years of high school. This is, as I anticipated, it's not true for last 2 years of high school. And this is why we have very few examples of these dynamic strategies in the last 2 years of high school. They are possible because the one I was showing with the science pirates was a senior year high school, but it's true that it's very, how could I put it? The activities that they were doing on the computer, they are very exam-like in a way. So it's disguised as if it was very dynamic, but it cannot be as dynamic as the other ones because many of the problems are, they are physics problems and they're presented on the computer, and you have to find the actual to answer that. And then you go to the lock and you can open the box. Whatever is in the box, that's a different story. But, the activities need to sort of mimic the exam, even if they are not exam-like. For 2 higher levels, primero, segundo, bachillerato, the 2 last years of senior high school. And the second question about choosing the language, that's a very good question. Originally, when I started working, with bilingual teachers, they had this pressure. Oh, I have to do everything in English. No, you don't. And what I would say is that you pay attention to your students' language proficiency and also the difficulty of the question. If you want to create a question that is slightly more difficult in terms of discipline, in terms of content, maybe it's okay to have this particular question in your local language rather than in English, because what you want in this particular question is to make sure that your students know this content, not necessarily know how to express this content in English. Ideally, probably sometime in the future, they'll be able to do both things. But because you have time limits, particularly for escape rooms, you have time limits. You need to consider, okay, how long are my students going to take in terms of answering this question about physics in English or answering this question about physics in Spanish? And if I need them to finish this in 1 minute, probably my answer will be, okay, so these instructions, because they're more complicated or cognitively more complicated or content, in terms of discipline, more complicated, then I'll have the instructions in Spanish. But then when it's something like, I don't know, choosing between different options, that can be done, as quickly in English or in Spanish, then you have your instructions in Spanish. However, the last one I was showing, the one with the science pirates, all of the instructions were in English. These are senior students. Their English proficiency should be good enough to follow all the instructions in English. So it's true that it's more about adapting to your students' needs, adapting to the content that you want to target, and adapting to the time that you have. Maybe you are practical. Okay, I know they'll do this faster if they do it in this language or the other.
Thank you. The answers are very clear. Thank you. Any other questions from our teachers? Liting, Yongzhu, looking at anyone randomly from my screen who look really attentively at looking at the screen.
I think we have some questions on the Padlet, right?
I think Inma answered most of them.
Oh, okay.
Yeah, in her
It's not-
slides.
I thought there's an adding, no, at the end.
Let me check.
Yeah, I think they are busy, writing questions. So how's everything going? How's the weather? Is it very hot?
I'm sorry?
I mean, is it very hot in Malaga?
Yes.
Same here.
Yes.
Same here, especially in Tainan. Yeah.
Wow.
Yeah. I guess that you just mentioned about the evaluations about the bilingual education, the content, and language. And that's the most difficult part, because here we have some confusion still about the terminology. ESP, EMI, CLIO, and content-based. All these
Yes.
Right. So especially for bilingual teaching, doesn't matter whether it's CLIO or EMI, basically, especially for CLIO, we have to be able to evaluate both content and language at the same time, with different proportion. But for high school teachers right here, group, and also for university professors, it's really not easy to have a legitimate evaluation for EMI, because it looks like if we just want to focus on the content, see students' comprehension, kind of like losing the point of using English. And also we focusing on building students' disciplinary literacy, especially disciplinary literacy in English. But if we don't have any, design to assess students' disciplinary English, it looks like it's not enough. But if we do want to do that, it means that our EMI teachers, or the high school teachers teaching within EMI, have to be able to have the language awareness so that they can test or assess students' language. So how do you think about this? I mean, like, is there a way out? Or, we can do it step by steps. Not necessarily we have to do both at the moment.
Yeah. What I found, there are two questions there about the terminology.
Yes.
And the implementation. So in the terminology, what the Andalusia's government did was everyone is doing GLIL. Regardless of whatever you do in class, is it EMI, is it CLIL, is it content, but they all call it GLIL. Okay. So the teachers are not confused in the sense that they don't know any other label.
Yeah.
Regardless
but how about
of
for higher education? How about for
higher education is EMI.
Okay, so it's clear, like for
EMI, and then primary and secondary is CLIL.
Okay.
In the end, sometimes, particularly for high school teachers and university teachers, they are doing very similar things, and I would say they're both EMI.
Yes.
But in Andalusia, if it's either primary or secondary, we call it CLIL regardless. It's more a political decision than a methodological decision. And then that's one thing. So sometimes teachers don't really see that they are doing EMI rather than CLIL, but that's fine. But on the other hand, with regards to implementation and particularly high school, higher levels, and paying attention to language as well as to content, I would say that horizontal coordination with the English teachers is essential. In the sense that certain language things that cannot be taught or addressed in the biology lesson or in the history lesson or in the math lesson, because they have regular meetings with the English language teacher of the same teaching group, the same group of students, that's when, okay, so the English teacher needs to pick up, okay, we are going to be dealing with vocabulary from math or vocabulary from science. Because in the end, you are teaching, I don't know, maybe you're teaching the future in English. It doesn't matter with what kind of vocabulary you do it. You can do it with vocabulary about, I don't know, tourism, or with vocabulary about biology. And in that sense, you are helping your colleague with the teaching of certain concepts, certain things. Also with the texts that are provided and discussed in both the content courses and in the language courses. There is an agreement between, and a collaboration between the geography, the physics, you know, even a physical education teacher and the English language teacher. And so some of the texts that have specific, you know, specific sentences, specific linguistic structures for biology, for physics, they are not necessarily addressed or analyzed in the content course, but in the English language course. The English language course is relatively flexible in the sense that you do have a number of items that you need to cover, but the topics that you use to cover those items are up to the teacher. So those topics can be related to other courses. And in fact, this is helping with motivation, because students can see that what they are learning in the English language lesson is helping them in the math, you know, bilingual session, or in the bilingual physics lesson or physical education or whatever. It's important that they see this coordination between the teachers. This is also possible because we have like this very big structure. We have coordinators, bilingual coordinators for every school that is involved, and also for different levels. So bilingual coordinator for third year, for fourth year, and so on. And then there are regular meetings between different, and this is normally a bureaucratic nightmare, but it happens. You have all of the bilingual coordinators from one area meeting regularly, like every 3 months, you know, sharing experiences and so on. So the coordination, horizontal coordination for us is essential.
So does that also affect the way that English education is going in the future? You just said that maybe does that call for any redefine ELT or any changes for the English curriculum in the country?
Okay. The idea is that what the politicians say is that we're going to follow European Union, and the regulations by European Union are lingua franca. You know, they are inspired by English around Europe, so it doesn't have to be so modeled on British English or American English, blah, blah, blah. But the reality is that there is a growing market in the area with Cambridge exams, Oxford exams. And so we have now these two tensions in English language teaching. going towards what European Union says in bilingual education, but then going to what parents want and these diplomas, and in a way treating English as if it was a market product. That you get this diploma, it's like you get some kind of medal, rather than you can communicate with other people from all around the world.
So that's exactly what we discussed before you came in.
We have these two tensions.
Yes.
Yeah. The good thing is that, generally speaking, content teachers are more relaxed about this. They are not so much about these external diplomas for themselves or for their students. They are more concerned about students learning the content well, covering all of the concepts and doing it so that they can communicate in English. This, at least as of today, is good. And generally speaking, what I've noticed is that when I speak to bilingual coordinators that are normally English language teachers, those are the ones that are more flexible about English. The conservative English language teachers, conservative, linguistically, are not part of the bilingual program in terms of participating, coordinating, etc., because they want to keep the English language lesson more English, if you know what I mean.
Yeah, I think our teachers here have a very good argument just now. They were saying that we already received 108 hours of PD, and we know we're focusing on the pedagogy. We focus on whether we can lead students to a better learning, to provide a more effective instruction. But then we are required to take the exams, proficiency exam. They have to get the certificate. B2, for skill, so that they can have a qualified stamps on their teacher's certificate indicating that they are bilingual teacher. Although right now the school doesn't require you to get that certificate in order to teach bilingual courses, but it's actually provide a lot of tensions for our teachers, because how difficult it is to prepare the exams, and especially for they are not language teachers. Yeah, so we were just saying that maybe.
Here what we do.
Go ahead.
What we do is, I was explaining it before, we have what we call official language schools. Those are run by the national government, and if you are a bilingual teacher, you have a priority to enroll in those courses, and those are taught they're not taught by it's not a professional development course, it's just a language course. Okay. But if you are only teaching English to teachers, in the end, it becomes a professional development course, because you're helping them to learn English to teach, not learn English for any other thing. And in this case, there's no actual requirement for a language diploma, but it's true that more and more teachers are seeing the benefits of being a bilingual educator, a bilingual teacher. Yeah. And also there is this compensation. You have less teaching hours if you are teaching in English.
Yeah, it's about the same. But I'm interested.
It's true. Yeah, I wouldn't say it's less work.
I know.
It's just less teaching hours, but I wouldn't say it's less work.
Yeah, I'm interested in the school that you just mentioned, the language school. Number one, how many hours? Number two, do they have to pay? Number three, what is the content? You just mentioned about the teacher are required to go to the school, right? For the language.
They're not required, but they are offered spots in those courses, and they have a priority to enroll. Yeah. So if they only have, 4 groups, and several teachers apply, one of those groups would be booked only for teachers. Yeah. And they wouldn't be with general population. Okay. They are not required. We offer from A1 to C2, and most teachers start in B1.
Okay.
And they are for any language, because right now in Andalusia we have bilingual schools, English and Spanish, those are the majority, but we also have French and Spanish, German and Spanish, and then we also have combinations like German, English and Spanish, French, English and Spanish. So for those languages, you can also get the courses. All of the courses are for free.
For free. So the purpose is for them to pass the exam, is it?
Not really. The purpose is for them to learn English, because you can take the course.
English.
Yeah, if you're a teacher and you take the B1 course, normally it's 4 hours a week from October to June. You can take the B1 course, and if you don't pass, so that you can move on to B2, next year you can continue on B1 course. So it's not really the pressure that you need to finish, you need to get a diploma. It's just for you to learn English and become familiar with, with the structure, pronunciation, and so on.
That's good, but that's a lot of hours. Did you say from October to June? Every week?
October to June.
Every week?
4 hours a week. Every week, except for, national holidays or...
Yeah. Okay. So they just passed, if I know, if they have finished the courses, they don't require to take the exams, right?
There is an exam, but if you don't pass it, it doesn't mean anything, like you could come next year and do the same course.
Okay, so it's not related to the bilingual teacher's certificate.
No. Okay. It's a different school, different project, even different government funding it.
Oh, I see. Okay. So how about our teachers? Does that sound okay to you? I mean, like if we can, recommend the MOE to provide this kind of courses, you just come and go, right? And then if you pass, you pass. If you don't pass, just come back to take. But then there was probably the priority, if this is the first time you take, maybe you have a better chance to get in, right? It's a general language classes, and then just for you to advance your English. So do you think that will work? Our teachers? Do you think that will work? Yes? Yes? Yuhua 老师, you want to say something?
Definitely, I think so.
Teachers, the instructions, I get encouragement to enhance the teachings is a bilingual class, and I think in the future I have the most confidence in teaching. Thank you. Thank you.
Yeah.
Anyone want to add anything here? You're all very shy. Okay. Well, it's a long day anyway, but I think thanks, Inma, for bringing us a very informative information regarding teaching pedagogy and also the language policy. I think it's important to, it looks like, we have a very similar systems, right? So it looks like we are going to the direction. So maybe we should presume our discussion less time, so the two teams, we can, visit and then maybe learn from each other.
Yes. Let's do that, please.
Yeah, we do plan budget for that, and the whole group visiting so that we can learn from each other. Yeah. Now I have to turn the floor back to Regine. Regine, you want to close the section and thank Inma once again for coming, and you have to keep coming back. Keep coming back tomorrow, next year.
We want you to keep coming back so we have a good reason to visit you in Spain. I have never been to Spain before.
Oh, good. Yes.
Yeah, I think
you
it's
are
very
a very
important.
good reason for us to go there. My first
time. Exchanging information and knowledge. Yes.
Yes.
We found lots of similarities, and especially the shared concern and shared excitement and shared hopes for our future generation. I do see that when we have international scholars talking about their practices, their education in their home country, that's how we sometimes say we are far apart. And I really like that Ima started with that the map, and that really kind of clicked and let us know we are very different, but actually we are very similar in many ways. And
Yes.
we are also as a global citizen, we are facing the similar concerns and worries about the things going on around us, even though we are in different corners in the world. And we all, as educators, we all have the hopes and for our next, and that's why we work so hard and try and advance ourselves and continue advancing ourselves because for the better future for our next generation. So thank you, Ima, for sharing all those wonderful stories and the practice and a way to encourage our teachers not to give up the hope and hold on to that we are actually growing our teachers and growing our future. So thank you, Ima. Thank you.
Thank
Hope
you. 谢谢
yeah.
谢谢 Hope to see you soon either here or in Malaga.
Yes.
Yeah. Thank
Bye.
you.
Bye
Thank
bye.
you. 谢谢
Okay.
你 Bye.
再见 That means goodbye. 再见 yeah. 再见
Goodbye.
再见 yeah.